Hey, what's up, guys? It's Mark. I'm back to talk about fantasy football again. So, week two just happened. Well, most of it. We still have one more game later today. So what I'm going to be doing today is I'm going to be doing a rehash of week two and some of the big fantasy trends that I'm picking up on so far for the season. So that way you can use this information to hopefully help your team moving forward. So, if you didn't have a good game this week, like let's say you started Drew Brees or Ben Roethlisberger, they both got hurt, or like you started O.J. Howard, or you started Josh Gordon or something like that. Understand like sometimes this stuff happens and you don't have good weeks from time to time. But sometimes like in fantasy football, you may start off like 0-2, but that doesn't mean that your season's over. You still have a lot of opportunity to potentially come back, make the playoffs. It's a long season. And like I said last week, the Houston Texans, so they started out 0-3 last year. They ended up winning the division. I think they went like 11-5 or something like that. So, I mean, you can still make a lot of changes as your season goes along. Maybe like hold certain players, like pick up certain players on waivers, something like that. Just don't panic yet. You still have a long season. You still have a lot of opportunity to kind of improve as the season goes along. But if you did have a good week, you can celebrate that and take that into this next week with some confidence moving forward. So let's look at these teams. I'm going to go through 30 of them because there's obviously still the Jets and the Browns. I'll talk about that in a little bit in the video that I'm going to do Tuesday talking about waivers. So I'm going to talk about all the games that have happened this week and my big takeaway for those teams. So let's start on Thursday night. I talked a little bit about this already, but for Tampa Bay, like O.J. Howard, a lot of people are panicking about right now because he didn't have a great first week, and then this past week he didn't even get targeted. There's a lot of talk about like Bruce Arians doesn't use tight ends, etc. But O.J. Howard is so talented that I wouldn't drop him just yet. I wouldn't start him in week 3. I would leave him on your bench. Give him another week and see how things go because I think that there is he's hit so far rock bottom at this point. Like really anything can go up at this point. So don't drop him just yet. He's so talented. I could see things improving for him. Remember in week 1, he did get an end zone look. He just dropped it in the end zone. So keep that in mind with him. But try to get another tight end that could give you some points instead of him for week 3, just to be safe. Carolina, I'm not worried about Christian McCaffrey. Yes, he didn't have a good game against the Buccaneers, but I think that moving forward, I think the Panthers will realize that they drifted too far away from the run game, which is clearly their strength of this team using Christian McCaffrey and his skill set. So I think they will go back to him and they will be more effective in week 3 with him there. So next game, let's talk about the games today. San Francisco 49ers. And Cincinnati Bengals. So first, my big takeaway for the 49ers is that Deebo Samuel should be a top receiver add on waivers for this team. He was one of the team leaders in targets in week 1, and then this week he led the team in targets again. 5 catches, 87 yards, and a touchdown. He had more targets than George Kittle did. I think that this is a great add that is probably on your waivers. He's a guy that I would pick up because I think that this is going to be a ton of opportunity moving forward. Garoppolo is starting to look pretty strong. And, so I think that this could be a great ad for you. He's one of the top guys I'd look at on waivers, depending on who's out there. Cincinnati, my takeaway is that, they're going to have to pass a lot because their rush offensive line is just so bad. They're going up against the 49ers, which, yes, they're a little better. But, that's not a reputable defense just yet. And they still have to play the Baltimore Ravens twice, the Steelers twice, which the Steelers aren't looking very good right now, but they always play Cincinnati tough. I'm very concerned with Cincinnati running backs, but I think that their pass options like John Ross, Tyler Boyd, they look like pretty solid value. And AJ Green is actually going to be getting healthy, hopefully at some point soon. So he might be a good guy to maybe buy low on. Because when he does get healthy, I think there's going to be a lot of opportunity for him, provided he actually stays healthy. LA Chargers in Detroit. So Austin Eckler and Keenan Allen are going to be must starts for the most part from here on because they're obviously, the two of them are both getting the most amount of catches on this team. I thought that things could kind of drift a little more towards one of their other receivers or Mike Williams or something like that. But Philip Rivers is almost entirely going Keenan Allen, Austin Eckler for that offense, and I think that those two are guys that like you should be excited about their opportunity in the next couple weeks moving forward, especially while Hunter Henry is still out. Detroit. So Kerryon Johnson is still like very perplexing to me. Like he had like a better game this week because he had a touchdown, but like if you take that play out of consideration, like he still only had about like 40 yards on the ground. He had about like 40 yards through the air, even with that touchdown catch. But he's now getting more carries for the backfield, but Ty Johnson is also getting more. So and he actually was more effective running the ball than Kerryon Johnson was. So I'm very confused and very concerned about him still. I think that like he's still a lot of good value, but like if you get somebody that's more consistent and I think has less question marks around him in a trade offer for Kerryon Johnson, I would probably do that. So, but just be very careful though, because he's so talented, but so many like what ifs going on right now in that backfield. All right, Minnesota and Green Bay. So my takeaway with Minnesota is that like Stephon Diggs has not had very good numbers yet, and he did have a catch and a touchdown that saved his performance today. He was one catch for like 14 yards or something and a touchdown. So like, but I think things will improve for him though, because he did have 8 targets, and he also did have a touchdown that was called back for kind of a bogus play. Pass interference plays. So, like, I think things will get better for him. He's a good buy low candidate, but just understand that, like, he might not have the same expectations because Thielen is clearly getting more of the wide receiver looks than Diggs is for the most part of this offense. And then for Green Bay, like, I hope you bought into my takeaway from last week and bought Devontae Adams and Aaron Jones because they both went off this week. Well, they didn't go off, but, I mean, very good games even for their standards. So you probably can't take advantage of that anymore, but I hope you did. And then the other thing is that like this defense looks pretty good. They did give up a lot of yards, but 4 turnovers. Like Packers defense is actually pretty solid right now, and I think depending on the matchup, I think they're going to be like really good value for you as the season goes along. Like for instance, like when they play the Denver Broncos later on, like yeah. Indianapolis and Tennessee. So Marlon Mack didn't have a great game. In fact, he was outrushed by Jordan Wilkins, but I wouldn't be concerned about that because Marlon Mack clearly had the most carries of them. Jordan Wilkins is by definition more inconsistent. I think things will improve for Marlon Mack, and I would even recommend buying low on him this week because Tennessee is a good defense. They did well last week against Nick Chubb, so I think Marlon Mack will have better weeks ahead. He's a good buy low candidate for the rest of the season. My takeaway with Tennessee is that like that defense is good, but I mean if you're gonna take advantage with any of these positions, tight end is possibly the one to take advantage of because gave up a touchdown last week. David Njoku gave up another one this week to Eric Ebron, who was for the most part shut out week 1. So be interested to see how Njoku does this week, but you know that could be the Achilles heel in that defense's tight end production. So pay attention to their matchups going forward. And when they face off against certain tight ends, could be good stream options for you. And then the other takeaway of Tennessee is like the only wide receiver worth owning on them is A.J. Brown. I think that Corey Davis is maybe somebody that you can own just for the purpose of trying to trade him away. But like drop Adam Humphries, drop like other guys out there that they have on their consideration. Like it's just I wouldn't even really look there. I mean, Delaney Walker, yes, but I'm talking about wide receivers. So in Miami, like I don't think it's worth owning any of these players except for Kenyon Drake, and that's only for the purpose of hoping that things miraculously change with his team because he is their top running back. But I mean, this is, as I said last week, looks like the worst team in football. I don't think things are going to improve for them as the season goes along. It's just, I don't know. But Drake has the most opportunity to improve, I think, as the season progresses because he's got pretty much the clear handle on the number 1 running back. So And then on the other side of that game, New England, so Darth Helmet, had a pretty good game in his first week. And I think that, if he manages to, just keep his head down, his nose clean, and just focus on football, it's going to be great for him. But I'm really concerned, and the offense is really scary moving forward, but, I'm very concerned about all their other players on his team, because that drive where they mostly featured Antonio Brown before they kind of just went into autopilot the rest of the game, it was mostly Antonio Brown. He's kind of he's in the slot mold. He's capable of doing that. So what does that do to Julian Edelman? Josh Gordon's obviously did not play as well with Antonio Brown being there. What's going to happen with James White as the season goes along. So very concerned with the Patriots. I would recommend trading them away. All of them, to be honest, just because I think that you're going to get inconsistent games from time to time. And I don't even trust Antonio Brown to really stay out of with all of the civil lawsuit against him and all that stuff, and who knows what other drama he could cause by the end of the season. So yeah, so I'd be very cautious with this team in fantasy football moving forward. Buffalo and the Giants. So for Buffalo's sake, I really like Devin Singletary, and he looked so good in that game, even with the limited opportunity he had before he got hurt. But I hate to say this, but hamstring injuries are so difficult for running backs to come back from that season and be the same. So I hope it's not serious for him, because this is a potential fantasy gold mine. Don't drop him by any means or the imagination. In fact, don't even trade him, because you're not going to get equal value for him right now because he's hurt. But unfortunately, you got to kind of adjust your expectations with him, and don't pick up Al Gore, because honestly, that guy had a touchdown, but again, a 4-year-old running back who's just it's amazing he's still even playing, but it's just, I don't see that guy as a viable fantasy asset going forward, except maybe when they play the Dolphins. But other than that, it's just such a shame, because Singletary, man, he could have really been great this season if he didn't get hurt like that. But I think maybe he'll be better in a couple weeks. Giants, so I'm concerned because none of these receivers are standing out. Eli is going to all these different guys. So the only one that I think has an opportunity to really stand out among this group is Sterling Shepard when he gets healthy. A lot of people have dropped him because of his concussion and the fact that he didn't really have a great week one. So, but he's a good buy low candidate right now, because I think he is the most talented of these receivers. Even Evan Ingram, I think Evan Ingram is a little raw and unpolished. I think Shepard is the one that really has the most opportunity to stand out and meet Odell level opportunity. Maybe when Golden Tate gets back from suspension, you can consider that as well. But just take a look at those. Take a look at Sterling Shepard when he gets healthy as a guy that you can buy low on. Seattle and Pittsburgh. So, and I've been saying this, but I'm excited about Rashad Penny moving forward. He did not have a good week one. It looked like it was going to be Chris Carson's backfield, but take a look at this week. He had he had 2 more yards than him, but on less carries, and that the huge carry difference last week, it was only Chris Carson had 15 attempts, 60 yards, no touchdowns, and Rashad Penny had longer runs, 10 carries, 62 yards, and a touchdown. So Rashad Penny is gaining momentum in this backfield, and I think they're going to eventually feature him as their top running back over Chris Carson. Add in the injury potential that Chris Carson has with his running style and just the fact that he's injury prone in general. And I think Rashad Penny is a guy that you must own moving forward. You must make sure you have him on your team, stashed on your bench, because this is a great opportunity for the rest of the season. Pittsburgh. So unfortunately, I'm very concerned with Ben Roethlisberger's injury, non-contact elbow injuries like that. The first thing that pops into my mind is Tommy John, which that's he's out for the season. James Conner also got hurt. So I think this whole offense, unfortunately, is going to get downgraded significantly, except for Jalen Samuels, depending on how much time that James Conner misses. But Juju, I think unfortunately you have to downgrade him now. Dante Moncrief is basically a non-factor at this point, but frankly, I wasn't very high on him anyway. And Vance McDonald, I mean, maybe, but like he did get 2 touchdowns in this game, but I think now is more of an opportunity to sell high on him than anything. And then, so next game, Dallas and Washington. These are going to be some sell candidates here I'm going to talk about. You want to sell Jason Witten right now. And I'm saying that because 2 games with 2 touchdowns. This guy is like another old and decrepit player. I think that, like, yes, he's getting some good looks right now, but I have a lot of concern about his durability. And just, like, the general hype with guys like Jason Witten, like, I mean, you could get, like, so much out of Jason Witten just because of that. And especially a guy that has O.J. Howard and is panicking at tight end right now. You can get a guy I'm probably going to talk about a little bit, like Devontae Freeman maybe in some kind of package deal, because like just so much like hype with Jason Witten, but I just have a hard time seeing that sustaining the whole season. I'm just telling you that right now. Then for Washington, so Terry McLaurin, I talked about my concerns with him, was that a flash in the pan game or not? And he proved that it wasn't. Another game where he had 5 catches, touchdown, good amount of yardage, top of the team in targets. So, but now is the time you want to try to, you need to make a choice right now if you're going to sell him or if you're going to commit to him for the whole season, because next week he's playing the Bears. So 3 things are going to happen. He's either going to, you either sell him now, you can get pretty good value for what he's done so far. You wait a week and he plays the Bears, and you're not going to get as good value because he might not have as good a game against the Bears. Or you decide to keep him against the Bears, and if he puts up that numbers again against that defense, I would strongly consider holding him the whole season, because a guy that looks like, if he could do that against the Bears, then this is a guy that is capable of leading the team in targets the rest of the season. So a lot of decisions to make on Terry McLaurin. I'm going to be talking about him as the weeks go by. But a lot of opportunity for him in Washington, but don't buy into that hype if you have the opportunity to get somebody who's by far more consistent. And this is the week to do it before he plays Chicago. All right, Arizona and Baltimore. So my takeaway is that I had a lot of concerns about Kyler Murray, what's he going to look like at the next level, but that's pretty much been resolved. I think this guy's going to be a great fantasy asset this season. He can obviously run the ball, did very well against a challenging Ravens defense throwing the ball. So I like this guy. I think he's going to actually be a very good fantasy asset for you. But just keep in mind, he's going to have his games where he's going to commit a lot of turnovers. David Johnson, I'm okay with him because he's playing Baltimore. I think they chose to shut him down, see what Kyler Murray can do. So don't panic with him just yet. Baltimore. So I had hesitancy about these 2 players as well, but Mark Andrews and Marquise Brown, those guys are pretty much, in my opinion, going to be in the consideration for start every week, depending on the matchups. Because Mark Andrews, 8 catches, 112 yards and a touchdown, 9 targets. That's incredible efficiency for a tight end. That's almost at Travis Kelce level right there. And then Marquise Brown, 8 receptions, 86 yards. That's, not as good as last week, but 13 targets. This guy is still getting a lot of looks. He's clearly becoming one of Lamar Jackson's favorite receivers. So great value right there. So I like both these guys moving forward the rest of the season, but just, another chance like Terry McLaurin, maybe you can get a lot of value for them if you sell them now. Just saying. Jacksonville, the only guy that I would own right now is DJ Chark. He has the best rapport with Gardner Minshew, and it's looking like Dede Westbrook is kind of falling out of the conversation. So Chark is the one to invest in on that team, but I think that difficult outlook for that whole team in general moving forward. Houston, don't panic on Deshaun Watson and Hopkins, because keep in mind, Hopkins was drawing Jalen Ramsey, and that's always a very tough matchup. Watson, I think, Jags defense is good. They didn't play very well, but they were playing Kansas City in week 1. But I am concerned with Duke Johnson, because I think that, this is a guy that, opportunity to step into the number 1 running back position, but, Carlos Hyde has clearly taken over the snap count and the carry count. And Duke Johnson isn't even really catching a lot of passes either. This is a guy I'm very concerned about moving forward the rest of the season, especially the guy they traded for. to be their number one running back. Like, that's very concerning for me. All right, so we get into the PM game or the 4 p.m. games now. Kansas City and Oakland. So my takeaway with Kansas City is that like the three receivers, like the three really fast, explosive receivers they have, like Demarcus Robinson, Sammy Watkins, McCole Hardman, like they are going to have inconsistent, explosive games time to time throughout the season. This week it was Demarcus Robinson, just went off compared to what he did in week 1. Sammy Watkins was okay, but he got a lot of targets. But like these are all guys that like are good assets to have. But I would more like when they do have those type of games like Sammy Watkins week 1, Demarcus Robinson week 2, like sell them then because like they're going to have those explosive games. But whenever Tyreek Hill gets back, like I expect more of that volume to shift over to him. So like I understand like picking up Demarcus Robinson is good, but I would try to sell him more than anything because I doubt that type of production will sustain itself as the season goes along. In fact, on waivers, I'd much rather have this guy for Oakland, and his name is Hunter Renfrow. So Hunter Renfrow kind of flying under the radar, but he did get an uptick in his production this week. He got 4 catches for 30 yards, but he led the team with 8 targets, even more than Tyrell Williams and Darren Waller. So this is a guy that like I think is like potential to be like a Julian Edelman type player, like good slot receiver, and he's going to have a lot of opportunity in this offense because they need weapons. So I really like Hunter Renfrow as a guy you can, if you're in deep leagues, like pick him up on the bench, and he'll have a lot of opportunity moving forward for you. But they do have a tough matchup next week. They play Minnesota. But if he does well then, I think that's a good... I mean, he's still worth stashing on your bench anyway because I think the volume is going to continue to go his way as the season goes on. All right, Chicago and Denver. Man, Chicago, I am just like... I'm almost done with these guys in fantasy. Like, you know, Denver just got like lit up by like Oakland last week, and then they faced Chicago, which is supposed to be an explosive offense, but like Mitch Trubisky looked bad. Like the running backs still look bad. The only one that I think is worth owning right now is David Montgomery because he did have improvement in this week, and I think that like Matt Nagy's slowly realizing that like we need to give this guy the ball actually. So, and then, like, Allen Robinson, like, just fell on his face. Like, well, no, he had 4 for, like, 44, but, like, not as good as last week. Tariq Cohen, like, very ineffective game. Mike Davis was non-existent. So, I'm pretty much, like, tilting away from all of these players except for David Montgomery. I'm very concerned about this offense still, and I think a Denver defense is not what it used to be, and this is concerning to me that they can't put up numbers against them. Denver defense, now let's move to Denver fantasy. A lot of people are saying, drop Philip Lindsay, because Royce Freeman is gaining steam. But they split the touches pretty evenly this week. And both of them did okay, considering they were playing Chicago. So I would hold on to both of them. I wouldn't make any rash decisions on them because they're playing Chicago. So hold both of them. Still have a lot of opportunity, and let's say one or the other gets hurt, the other one is going to really become a very good asset for you. So I wouldn't feel comfortable starting either of them right now, but I would definitely make sure that both of them are guys that you have rostered. New Orleans and the Rams. So sadly, another quarterback injury, and I think the Drew Brees' injury really hurts everyone on the Saints, except for Michael Thomas, because Teddy Bridgewater did have a very good rapport with Michael Thomas in that game. But I'm concerned about Alvin Kamara and the potential that they'll try to shut him down, make Teddy Bridgewater beat you. Latavius Murray might not have the same opportunity now. I really hope that Brees can come back from his injury because he's a good guy and the team is very competitive when he's on the field. But it's going to be interesting to see how this division moves forward because there's a lot of teams with question marks right now, and if Drew Brees is out, it really opens it up a lot, who can actually win the division. The Rams, Cooper Kupp, I'm now back in the stronghold of this guy being a consistent fantasy asset. I was very concerned about him coming off an ACL injury, but he looks good. He had a very productive game, didn't get a touchdown, but one of Jared Goff's top receivers, and he's going to continue trending in that direction. All right. Then the Sunday night game, Philadelphia and Atlanta. So Philadelphia, if you didn't catch the news, they had a lot of injuries. Alshon Jeffrey got hurt and Deshaun Jackson got hurt. Those are their two top guys. For the most part, like Zach Ertz is going to get a lot of targets to make up for that. But a guy that is pretty much on waivers right now and is kind of forgotten about in that offense in fantasy is Nelson Aguilar. And this is a guy that, like, he is going to be one of the top receiver ads if he's on your waivers, because if Deshaun Jackson or Alshon miss a lot of time, like, they are going to be going to Nelson Aguilar a lot. He's a guy that previously had a lot of rapport with Carson Wentz, but then kind of fell out of favor last year after they got Golden Tate back. But Aguilar, had a very good game this week, and I think that trend will continue, especially if those two receivers miss time. And then Atlanta, the last week I said don't give up on Devontae Freeman, and he only really had like one good play that really kind of made his night respectable this week. But like, I'm still not giving up on Devontae Freeman because he is still the top running back on this team. And the Eagles, they have a good run defense, and that even showed against Washington last week. So let's take a look at him compared to Ito Smith in the production. So Ito Smith, yes, he had 32 yards, but it was on 4 carries, and he had a 28-yard gain. So literally one play made most of Ito Smith's yards. That could have easily been Devontae Freeman, let's say, if they had him there instead of Ito for that play. But Devontae Freeman, not a very good game on the ground. He had 11 carries for 22 yards. But 11 versus 4, that is, compared to what it was last week, that is showing you that, Devontae Freeman is the guy that they ultimately want to go to more. So I still think this is a good buy low ad because he's going to get more opportunities as the season goes on. He's just drawn some tough matchups the first 2 weeks, and I think that's limited his production. But a guy that I like to bounce back, and I think a good guy that you can buy low on. So that's my takeaway for all these games. Let me know what you think in the comments section below. And in tomorrow's video, I'm going to be talking about the top waiver wire ads. I talked about some of them today, but we're going to get into it a little bit more after Monday night's game as well and see who the guys are that I would personally try to focus on the most on waivers. So anyway, yeah. So thanks for watching. See you guys. Bye.